We'll give it just another minute or so for others to join, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, we can go ahead and get started, and as people join, they can just kind of pick up with where we are. Thank you all so much for being here this morning for our vault training. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jess Buller. I work with the Career Everywhere Initiative and the Career Champion Program, and we are very lucky to have one of our own, Aaron Peterson, with us today. Aaron is kind of an expert in all things Vault, so he will be walking us through how to use it with our students and then answering any questions that you have. So Aaron, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for having me here. I see a lot of familiar faces, so that's great. Well, today we'll talk a little bit about Vault, what it is, how to access it, and primarily how we use it in our office. So buckle up, I guess. It's kind of a big platform, but we'll just focus on some of the main highlights in Vault. And honestly, Vault's one of those things where you might find use for it outside of how we use it when you start exploring the stuff that's in there. So I'm actually going to share my screen with you, and I'll give you a tour, and we'll start with how to find it and how to log in, because you'll want to log into this thing. So, okay, perfect. So give me a nod if you see our website here. Okay, perfect, great. So you can find Vault on our website, and I'll show you kind of where it lives. It's in a few places. If you click on career resources here, you can set some filters. We use this a lot of times for the job search process. So that's a safe place to start. We have some filters over here. And so if you were to filter for job search, for instance, you would see it appear here. You can find it under who we serve, undergraduate students find a job. It lives all over the place in our website. If you want to find it how I find it, you would just go to Google and you would type in UConn Vault, and then it'll be the first link. But this is what it looks like on our website. So to access this, you want to actually, if you have if you're affiliated with UConn, you'll want to access it through our website and logging in with your UConn credentials, because that's where you can tap into the paid for aspects of Vault. And what I'll be showing you today is the stuff that, most of the stuff that comes with our subscription to Vault, although some stuff is available just on vault.com. So when you first get to Vault, this is what it looks like. And to access the paid for stuff, you would enter, if you're affiliated with UConn, you would enter your UConn email address, as well as whatever password it is that you use for logging into things at UConn, and you would log in, and that will give you access. So anybody with a UConn email address and password, that be that staff, faculty, or students, will have access to the full suite of tools and offerings in the Vault platform. So you know you're in the right place when you see on the top here it says access provided by University of Connecticut. If you're using just vault.com, you'll notice that a lot of these pull downs will be there, but there'll be little locks next to stuff if stuff is not available outside of the pay for platform there. So this is the landing page of Vault. I think they're really known for a lot of rankings that they have, but that's not necessarily the most important thing that you'll probably spend a lot of time on Vault. But you can see they rank companies, there's reviews, there's internship programs. They also do a lot of blogs. And you'll notice we borrow a lot of their content from their blogs, even for our website, because a lot of their blog content is really good. And they're constantly posting new blogs and topics that are of interest to us and to students. So if we go through kind of the main functions of Vault, and I'll save the best for last and the thing that I use with students the most, but there's the rankings. You can research companies based on some industries. There's a lot of information in here about internships. And one thing in here that's of note right now is that there is a list of, and it says 2020, but probably still some good leads for 2021, but virtual internship programs and opportunities for students who are looking to intern or apply for things that are virtual. If you open this up, you'd see a nice list here. You can see kind of how they set up their rankings here: most prestigious internships, best internships by employment factor, so on and so forth. Some of these things are interesting. A lot of them are just going to be, you'll see recycled companies and stuff in here. And it might not be really that relevant to students, because a lot of these companies are going to be the big companies where there's other opportunities for companies that might not be highlighted in here. They also have all sorts of things like featured internships and jobs and things like that. And feel free to pop in questions as we go through this, and I'll be sure to kind of answer those at the end. Another big part of Vault are the Vault guides. And way back in the day, they used to mail these guidebooks to career centers, and we'd keep them in our career libraries, and they would sit there and collect dust. But now they put all of these guidebooks, which are quite lengthy, right on their website, and you can download them as PDFs. So there are a ton of them in here, and they're very detailed, and they have a lot of information about either specific industries, jobs, and topics. So we track what is the most accessed things and resources within this particular platform. And by far the most accessed resource is the Vault Guide to Finance Internships by our students. So for some reason or another, that guidebook it's pulled all the time. And so I'll show you what it looks like. It's probably under, let's see where it is. It's actually probably under interviewing. I'd encourage you, as you're exploring these, to open up and look at some of these guidebooks, because they go through, it's this one. This is the most popular one. When you open these, and I'll kind of give you a sneak peek at what it looks like, it's probably close to 300 pages long. Let's see. Gives you kind of a synopsis about what it is. I mean, this one's actually quite dated, 2015. A lot of time they release new guidebooks all the time. And I get notifications, and I don't know how you can sign up for those. Of course, this is a little bit slow to open. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this, but essentially, oh yeah, here we go. So it's loading this up, and this is what it will look like. And there's a table of contents, but it'll have example interview questions, strategies to answer those interview questions, some anecdotal stuff about what those, what folks in the finance industry might be looking for in candidates. So it's a very robust resource, and all of the guidebooks are just like this. A lot of this content is then split up and spread across different areas of Vault, so you can access tidbits of these guidebooks. We're going to look at that in a moment here, but this is essentially what it looks like. And if I pull up the table of contents, and feel free to follow along on your own computer if you have the login thing, so you can kind of poke around as I'm doing this. It seems to be a little bit sluggish to load while I'm screen sharing. But this one, and there's a couple of, there's a law one that is pretty, it's utilized pretty heavily. So I'd encourage you to kind of explore these guides a little bit. So aside from the guides, the most probably heavily utilized aspect in our office from the career coaching standpoint lives under this pull down career advice. So you can see the topics in here. So there's resume tips and samples and cover letter advice. I probably wouldn't, push students to that outside of pushing students to meet with us personally for resume critiques and stuff, but there's not terrible advice in there. There's interviewing tips and questions, but we have other platforms that serve, they serve better, I think, for interviewing. So we have Big Interview on our website. We have our practice interview program, but there's, information in here on interview tips and questions. Where I start with students, as far as job search is concerned, is here, and it's research industries. So one of the strategies that I work with students on is starting your job search by identifying the industry first that you want to work in. And when I say that to many students, they don't quite understand what is an industry, what does that mean? And so this is a great place to show students a nice list of industries, how they're organized. It's not a super lengthy list, but it can give students an idea of how things are kind of organized. So you can see that under the manufacturing industry, there are a number of different types of things that are manufactured. Now, clearly, this is not an exhaustive list of types of manufacturing industries, but it's many of the big ones, and it's a good starting kind of jumping off point for students. There are also things in here that might surprise students as far as industries that, exist. So, guess what? There's a rubber industry, right? That might surprise some people, and you can read in detail in here about what that means to be working the rubber industry. The other thing that I usually point out when I'm working with students in here is that, yes, you can work in many of these industries, but many of these things transcend, they cover many industries. So, for instance, if we look at something like marketing, yes, marketing is an industry and there are marketing firms out there, but there are also marketing departments within many of these industries. So although that can be confusing, I think, when the student were to open up marketing, they would be able to read about that and how that is true and how it kind of matters in their job search. So step one, again, I would show the students, here are a list of industries. I'd encourage you to read about these to get a better sense of what the industries are, what moves them, is it interesting to you, and then we can move on from there. So I'll just pick like a random one here. We'll pick, like animation, for instance. And hopefully this isn't a dud that I'm showing you. I can't say that I've ever even opened this one up, but this is what it would look like. So it gives an overview of the industry. Sometimes it's quite extensive. So in this case, it's pretty short here, but just a definition of what this industry is. There's some historical information about the industry, how the industry is structured would be in here. Industry outlook is going to cover things like, what's going to be happening in the future in this industry, things to just know about. But a lot of this information might be new information to students that they just didn't realize was part of that industry. Resources and associations, for many students, they're not quite sure what that is and how that's important to them. But this can offer a pretty good introduction to why you might join a resource, why you might join a professional association. It might be less expensive as a student to join it. What are the benefits? And here are the ones that are associated with that specific industry. So although this is quite exciting for students, the next step of this is actually really why we probably subscribe to Vault, to be honest with you. And that's to show a student that within this industry, there are a number of different professions. And those professions are going to be listed down here. Now, this particular industry, this is not an extensive list. Some of these industries, like healthcare providers, this list is very long. But each one of these has a lot of information behind it. So I think many students would think, well, animation as an industry, who works in that? Oh, just animators. But in actuality, there are a lot of people that work in this industry, and they're doing a variety of different things, not just animation. So, what is a Unity developer? Maybe I've never heard of that before. So if I open this up, it's going to give me a whole wealth of information about this specific type of profession. So as you can see on here, there's a lot of information on here, and this little landing page shows salary range. Not that helpful, to be honest with you. It's a pretty big range. Might not be that accurate, but we can find that information elsewhere. Shows if there's a specific degree level you need, if there are certifications and licenses, and detail about these things is in here on the left-hand side. The career ladder might give students an insight as to what job titles to search for, as far as like where do you start and where do you end up. And this information, I might encourage a student to pop this into LinkedIn to find, folks that do it and get a sense of where are they doing that, what's their background, so on and so forth. As you can see here, there's information about the history of the specific profession, what the job is like. Many of these have little videos that interview someone who does the job, and they talk a little bit about it. This specific one doesn't, but as you poke around here, you will find them that do. And then some of the things that I want to make sure students do see in here is the tips for entry. So if there's like a niche job board, or there's some strategies that students should be thinking about now, that will be listed in here. So as you can see, there are some niche job boards in here that are specific to this type of job. And this may also point students to professional associations. Although, again, another way to talk to students about professional associations is to link right here to unions and associations. And this would show whoever's looking at this, what the big ones are and the ones that matter. Okay, and so then once you get down into here, you can see that there's related professions even to this profession. So now it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So this can be a rabbit hole for students, I think, but it can be also very inspirational as they see all the different opportunities that there are within a specific industry and related professions. So when I show this to students, usually their minds are blown. They get very excited about it. And this is one of those things that students actually do follow through, and they do the work, and they spend some time exploring in here and learning all sorts of things about, jobs and job roles and stuff that are related to what their potential interests are. Now, outside of this, I might then, next homework steps might be to, again, include some of this search terminology into LinkedIn, so they can see people maybe that graduated from UConn that are doing this, or others are in a specific location, and get a sense of what their actual backgrounds are, and try to, no sense in reinventing the wheel. Just replicating somebody else's success would be the next, logical step, I think, for students. So those are I would say the top highlights in Vault that I would steer students to. One being the guidebooks, and the other being the research industries and researching professions through those industries. You can access these professions without digging down through industries, and you can do it through Explore Careers. But I found in my experience doing this top-down approach, going from industries down into professions, seems to be able to connect a lot of dots, I think, for students, rather than just picking random professions and not seeing how they're kind of interconnected with each other. So with that, I'll pause for a moment and answer any questions that you might have. Anything come in, Jess?
There is a question in the chat. Can alumni access Vault with their UConn email account?
That I'm not certain of. My guess would be that if an alum is recent enough where they can log in to things like, the library resources and things that they can typically log in with their NetID or with their email address, then yes. But I'm not positive. And I'm actually not sure if there's a way for us to grant permissions outside of kind of how it's already gated as far as the access to Vault is concerned. Any other questions or areas you'd like to learn more about?
So it seems that we cannot really access through our NetID. We have to set up our own password, right?
It's the same password that you would utilize for like when you log into your email address. So yes, it's likely the same exact password that you would use with your NetID, except the login is not NetID, it's UConn email address.
Okay. I tried that and it didn't work. So I just put in a different password and it seemed to be working.
Oh, you had to create your own password with that UConn email address?
I think you have to
Yeah.
create an account the first time that you log in.
Oh, interesting.
You use like the email address that you use should be your @uconn.edu. So if you have like a
Correct.
or anything like that, so you could use a different password if you wanted to.
That's what
Okay,
I did.
gotcha.
And it seems that you can either enroll as a student or professional, but you don't have a choice for teacher. So
It likely gives you the exact same access, I would imagine.
If you do professional, I think that will work just fine.
Okay.
So a year ago, the way Vault would work was as long as it was on your website, anybody could access it. So it's actually probably been even within the last 3 or 4 months that they've even had a login. It used to be that if you knew of a university that had the platform, you could go to their website and you could just access it and get into the free stuff. So they've made this login thing, it's very recent. So I'm assuming that, I mean, maybe I had to set up an account. I don't recall doing that, but I must have. So if when you're setting up an account and you're using that UConn email address, if anyone has had to do that, does it send a verification to your UConn email? Is that how they're authenticating that? Or does it not even care?
Not even, actually, I got an email from Vault, but you don't have to authenticate through the email.
So, you know, there may still be a loophole there where if you're one of our industry partners, you may just be able to have a UConn email address and gain access to that. And honestly, that wouldn't surprise me based on their previous, you know, security measures that they were doing. So you might want to try it because you might be able to access all that kind of paid for stuff.
One other thing that I think Vault is really great for, depending on like the situation in which you are talking to a student, but if you supervise a student or you're doing research with a student or just a student that you teach who might want to go into a field that's not exactly what your expertise is in, Vault is a really helpful way if they're asking you like, you know, what are the names of positions out there or what are those opportunities for me? It kind of helps you bridge the gap from not necessarily having to say, I have no idea, but walking them through that and showing them what options are out there and how they might think through that process on their own as well.
Is anybody else having any issues opening the guidebooks? So one thing about this particular technology is we have a very close relationship with the person that is our representative. So if you have any issues at all with Vault, you can share those issues with our office and usually we can resolve them within, you know, within that day. It's usually pretty instantaneous when they fix stuff because sometimes I run into little issues in Vault and they've been very quick to correct those. So If you continue to have issues with the guidebooks, just let me know, or Jess know, or Nancy. We can sort that out and make sure that you have access to that. As far as personality tests, I don't believe that they have any of those things built in, but just so you know, we do have Focus 2 available on our website as a which measures values, personality, skills, and leisure interests. I think there's five measurements in there, and that's free for students to work. And it actually interprets those assessments for them. We also do offer Strong, and we stopped offering Myers-Briggs interpretations for the moment in our office, but we do offer the Strong, which is an interest inventory. But that is by appointment only. And we do offer those to students for free, although they do cost us a little bit of money every time we do one of those things. But we have a number of people in our office who are certified in Strong. So happy to do those if you think a student needs an assessment. So particular contact, you can just email me if you'd like to. My email address is just aaron@uconn.edu with any Vault stuff, because I'm usually in contact with Vault pretty regularly. So if you have any issues, just feel free to shoot me an email, or Career Champions. Either way, it'll all get to the right place. If you have any anything that comes to you that you think of, questions about this specific topic, you can email me directly. Happy to walk you through stuff individually if you'd like to as well. I just encourage you to explore the platform. I think it really does have a lot to offer. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll kind of turn it back over to you, Jess.
Awesome, thank you. We will stick around if anyone has any more individualized questions about the resource or about specific areas of it. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming to this. If you have any questions, as always, you can email the Career Champion email account, which is just careerchampions@uconn.edu. But we are happy to help you, show you specifics if you need a refresher. And this will be posted to our website within the next couple of weeks. So if you want to go back and view how to find a certain thing or how to log in, that will be available for you as well. But thank you all so much for coming.